Alright, this represents the focus lesson for Chapter 5, Section 3, which is on textbook page 312. We're going to look at a couple questions. I'm going to kind of use the book as a guide to show you how to use the book to the examples in the book to help you understand what's supposed to be going on. And again, in between, if you need me to stop at any point, just raise your hand and let me know. Other than that, we're going to look at number 8 first. It says find the slope and y-intercept of the graph of each equation. If you get to this question number 8, which gives us y equals negative x plus 4, and you don't know what's going on, look up in your book and notice that up here it says exactly where you're supposed to go, which says see problem 1. So turn back in your pages to where you go to problem 1, and this should, or based off of what the book is telling us, it should help us understand what's going on. This asks a similar question: what is the slope and y-intercept of the graph of y equals 5x minus 2? It says use slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form was y equals mx plus b. Noticing that m again is slope, and it kind of points up the slope to be here. And since m is attached to x, that the slope should be attached to x. B, if you remember from last year, is your y-intercept is pointing at b here, and b would be whatever this number is here. Notice that they took the 5x minus 2 and they turned it into 5x plus a negative 2, which allows us to use it that way. And then quickly they just make the quick call that the slope is 5, the y-intercept is negative 2, which means we're pretty much just taking the direct translation of that to get our answer. So let's see how that works as we go through this. So number 8, y equals negative x plus 4. Again, using y equals mx plus b. The m number is here. That m would be, well, there's no number there. And so what that means, we have to use our thinking a little bit. Remember that there's always a number there, but the invisible number is 1. And that means that our m is negative 1. Our b is in the same location as this 4. So the b is 4. That means that our slope is negative 1. And our y-intercept is 4. So it's a real quick, direct read from it. You just make sure you remember that slope is attached to x, y-intercept is attached to the, or is a number all by itself. Looking at 13, we have y equals 4. Again, using the y equals mx plus b form to help us out. M is attached to x. I don't see an x there, so what I think that means is that we can actually write this as y equals, since we don't have an x, it means we can write it as y equals 0x plus 4, which means that m in this case would be 0, that b would be 4, and so based off of that we know that our slope, remember m represents slope, is 0, and our y-intercept is 4. Okay. We have a second section to deal with here, talking about writing the equation in slope-intercept form of a given line. They give us m and b. And again, if you get to that point and you don't know what you're doing, read the situation. It says here to see problem 2, so we'll find problem 2 in our book, where it says what's an equation of a line with slope negative 4/5, y-intercept of 7. It looks to me like they're using the y equals mx plus b again. M representing slope, looks like they just turned m into negative 4/5. B representing y-intercept, looks like they just turned it into 7. And that's all they did. So again, let's use that to our advantage here and see what we've got. 17 wants one with the m of 3 and a b of 2. Again, using y equals mx plus b means that we should end up with 3x plus 2 as our answer there. So it's really not too bad. Just make sure you understand the general concept. 19, m is 0.7. B is negative 2. Again, using the slope-intercept form, mx plus b. It means that we're going to turn this into 0.7x. And instead of writing plus a negative 2, because it's negative, we can just put minus 2. And those would be our two answers there. The third thing we're going to look at in this first portion of our focus lesson is writing an equation from actually having a line. And this is something you did last year, but again, I'm just trying to bring it back to your memory. Again, it says see problem 3, so let's look at problem 3 in our book and see what it does here. Not so much worrying about the multiple choice portion of it, but just trying to see what they did. It says find the slope, and they're using 2 points, but I think that we practice finding slope in a different way, and that we found 2 good points. And if you look at it, there's a good point here, and there's another good point here. If you remember using rise over run to find slope, my rise is 2, my run is 1. I get a slope of 2. Notice that they also got a slope of 2 in our work. So you could use points by actually using negative or 0, -2, and then 1, 0. But if you have an image, remember I told you the best way to do the slope of an image is to find 2 points and use rise over run. Once we have that, it says we have the slope. It says the y-intercept is -2. I think that's because y-intercept is saying where it crosses the y-axis. If you notice here, this is the y-axis, and it crosses the y-axis at -2, which is why they got this value here, and then they simply plugged it in to your final answer. So let's see how this works out. 23. Pretty much I am looking for M and I am looking for B, and I am going to get those from the actual graph itself. The first thing I see is that we have a good point and another good point with the slope of, starting from the left point, rise of 1, 2, run of 1, which if I reduce that gives me a slope of 2, and the y-intercept, which is B, where it crosses the y-axis at 1, 2, -3. And because now I have M and B, I'm simply going to plug those into my mx plus b, getting y equals 2x. And remember, I don't want to put plus a -3. I'll just put -3. And that is all that I have to do to answer that question. Again, find the slope using the method that we used last week, and then identify the y-intercept by using your common sense in terms of where it crosses the y-axis. 25. Again, in order to do this, I need an M and I need a B. First thing I'm going to do on 25 is find 2 good points. Here's one and here's one. Looks like they're using the same numbers over and over. My rise in this case, to go from the left point to the right point, I go down 2, which means it is a -2 over 1, which is -2. And B, again representing my y-intercept, means where does it cross the y-axis? It crosses at 4. And so using y equals mx plus b, the slope-intercept form, I simply plug my numbers in. -2x plus 4 would be the equation of that. So use these notes in the work you do today in the first portion, and then we'll talk about it real quickly and then get into the second part, which is just as important. So be sure to ask questions on this before you get started, and also be sure to ask questions while you're working on it.